This podcast is brought to you by Hello Future. Do you want to drive innovation in your organization, futurize your enterprise, expand your patent portfolio, create amazing new profitable products and services, or effectively project manage to market? Then contact us today, hellofuture.co, and get started.
Why listen to the past when you can listen to the future? Welcome to the Think Future podcast, broadcasting from deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, California. We focus on innovation, startups, and the future, not necessarily those and not necessarily in that order. Here's your host.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about.
So my name is Kris Mason. Our organization is JustJans, and I'm passionate about life.
Nice. So what is JustJans all about? Tell me about it.
So JustJans is we have a small gourmet food company. It's just two of us, myself and Jan, and we create all the recipes and products. We create the initial version of the product, and then we have manufacturers who take it into kind of that higher scale of manufacturing, thousands of units and what have you. But everything still starts in a kitchen, in a home, in a place where it's just two people trying to make something that tastes good, and hopefully that translates to something that tastes good to other people too.
Nice. So how did you get started?
So Jan got started. Jan got started with a fig tree in her backyard. It was producing a ton of figs, and she didn't want to see them go to waste. So she got kind of creative and tracked down a fig spread recipe, and then made her own little tweaks because she's a cook herself. Mm-hmm. And what she was making was incredibly delicious at the time. And I was a friend of hers who was a sampler. I was a taste tester. I was someone who tasted all the spreads that she was coming up with them, and my background's in marketing. So I would say, hey, have you tried this? Or you should think about doing this or that. And so, those conversations became me consulting, became me working with Jan. And that was, I don't know, over maybe that was 7 years ago.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
It's been some time, and we've made products that have been in Williams-Sonoma, Sur La Table, Cost Plus, World Market. Like we've done quite a bit, and now we're just focusing on making people aware of the JustJans brand itself, and getting our product in front of people and getting it, into as many hands and mouths as we can.
Nice. Well, I love to hear that, like the very, very beginning of all this. So you guys met, or you guys knew each other before this, or you met through the Jans? Okay. And then you became a consultant, and then you came on board, right? And then at that time, when you first started, like how big were you? I mean, sales wise, did you?
Oh, tiny. I mean,
yeah.
For two people, I would say it was a good size sales. We had a national client, or Jan had a national client very, very quickly, and hotels and things of that nature. But I don't think we certainly didn't start.
Oh, I lost you. Is your mic okay? I can't hear you. Hello? Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry.
Zoom, man.
Yeah, man.
So sorry. Can you restart?
Sure. So when Jan began, she was doing the door to door. She was going to individual local markets and saying, "Hey, will you try this?" She was passing it out, and that yielded a large client shortly within. But I don't think we didn't start off as some big company. I was saying we didn't start off with a ton of clients and a ton of customers. Jan pushed it, and I would help in the ways that I could, or with some ideas. And by the time I came on board, she had some of the bigger clients, and some of the bigger names were already involved.
So this first client was already on board by the time you started.
Yeah.
And it was just like a fluke. They happened to be like, can you tell me about that first meeting? How that went?
Yeah. So So it's not my. This didn't happen to me, but this is the story as I know it, and this is
Okay.
this. So this is it. But Jan was at a lunch meeting with a consultant, and she was determining how to get into this business, how to get into the food world. She was working with someone who was kind of guiding her through the process, and that person was at a meeting, and so Jan was sitting on the meeting, and this was at a Chinese restaurant. A table nearby overheard the conversation, and that person came over and said, "Hey, I'm a buyer for a national store.
Wow.
And, I heard what you were saying, and I'd like to talk to you about your product." And that was Jan's product at the time. So
very cool.
Yeah, she goes on to have this epic meeting with this buyer, and the buyer says, "Okay, when you figure this all out, give me a call and I'll put you in the stores." And that's literally what happened.
Fantastic. So it was just it happened to be in the right spot, was talking about the product, and then boom, there it is.
Right there.
Did she have it with her so that they could try it then, or were they talking about it?
I think they were talking about it. Jan, did you have it with you?
You mean when I was at the Chinese restaurant?
Yeah.
No, I met her 2 weeks later and then brought
Yeah,
her.
she didn't have it with her. She would just the person overheard the conversation and said, "Oh, let's have a conversation." And then she brought in the product to sample. And even at that point, the sampling part, just to be clear, this was still the homemade stuff. This wasn't the finished product. This wasn't the stuff that was manufactured in jars even.
Right. And then they tasted and they said, "Oh, this is fantastic. I need 1 million jars."
Yeah, I mean, not 1 million, but yeah, they said, this is really good. This is really good. These are all really good. I will take these when you get them, to the full manufacturing thing. And so that's
fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. And then from that point on, I mean, do you still have that? Do you still have that original contract
customer?
Yeah, the original customer.
We still have that customer, or I should say, with in retail, there's turnover within the products, but that's a customer that we can reach out to and, hey, we have this. What can you do? So that type of thing. So it's still a relationship, absolutely.
So, so after you got that first customer, obviously a lot of orders came in, extra cash came in. How did you grow the business after that?
So that's interesting. That's a good question. I think that happening so soon put us on a different trajectory, and the trajectory from that point was to find other large retailers, who were going to make those types of orders. And so,
right, you wanted to have lightning strike again.
Exactly, and we did, and not knowing any better at the time, really. So what ended up happening was we started doing private label for a lot of companies, a fair amount of companies, one company in particular, and that became really the path to growth. It was who can we make something that, or is there something we can get into their pipeline with, something we have a little bit of expertise at, and that worked for a time. Obviously, I think COVID kind of changed the landscape in terms of that type of specific working or business, but it was something I think we were kind of moving away from anyway. And I think now we're in a place where, as I said, the main focus and impetus is on pushing this brand forward and letting people know what it is, and not making stuff that has someone else's label and they can sell and we don't really benefit from in the same way.
Right. So how long were you doing the white label stuff before you decided to do your own thing?
I would say we did the white label for 5 years. I mean, very recently we've kind of shifted away from that and more into the we're focusing more on this brand.
So is there a reason why you decided to do that instead of just staying white label the whole time?
Yeah, because I should say within the white label element, we were doing our brand and working at that, but it just took up so much time. It becomes this disproportionate amount of time gets spent working on other people's projects. You're kind of shepherding something that someone else is going to use and sell, as opposed to shepherding what you're trying to create and what you're trying to put out. So it was just seeing that in full view finally, and be like, okay, this isn't going to get us where we need to be with this company. This is going to help them, but it's not helping us. And so seeing that and making that shift was a big deal for us.
So did you have a situation where your product and the white label product was on the same shelf at the same store, or?
No, not really. Not in that direct of a sense. I mean, I suppose it could have happened with a few clients or places. But no, I think the worlds were separate enough for there to be room for one to grow and for us to do the other. This keeps coming out. Okay.
Right. So you were white labeled for a while, and then you decided to start, or you actually were doing both your own and the white label. But
Right.
I mean, I'm assuming the money from the white label was more than the one from your current label, or
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
I mean,
So one was funding the other, basically. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what did you do? What did you do to start growing the your own brand product?
One of the things we do, I can actually show you this because I have it here. Is this? This is tangerine sriracha. This is
Oh, that
this
sounds
is the
great.
first.
I'd love to try
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I'll send you some. Send me your address. That's the first product that I created, and that came about just from looking at the line of things that we offered and saying, what can we offer that's new, that's different, that's going to kind of put us in a different light or push the envelope a little and resonate with a broader audience. And this won Sophie, which is a major food award in the food industry. Specialty Food Association gives these out, and this was a finalist for best new product when it came out. And this led to us getting into a grocery chain of markets in Southern California that we've been trying to get into for a while. That product pushed us through the door, and now they carry all of our products.
Fantastic.
So just trying to move us forward in a new way. That was what perpetuated us get into some new business, different business.
So how do you come up with the ideas for these things? I mean, it's just a lot of trial and error. Do you just like tell me about your thought process of how you come up with new products?
Yeah, definitely trial and error. I mean, again, because we're cooking in the kitchen and working from, as an example for the sriracha, I went to the grocery store, I bought the peppers that I wanted. I bought all the ingredients. I came back here and then I started measuring and weighing and doing that. So there is an element of trial and error. There's also an element of what interests us, just what, we're trying to be creative here. We're not necessarily trying to copy anyone or do things that have already been done, but more so the things that inspire us or the things that we would enjoy eating. So there's always an element of just kind of playing. Oh, this sounds cool. This would be an interesting combination. Or I wish they made this. Well, let's see how that goes. And so we do a lot of that. And the ones that really wow us are the ones I think that we try to go into further development on, and we work at a little bit more, and we engage that process, and then kind of get into the back and forth with the co-packer. And if they can replicate what we did in the kitchen, then we have something.
Right. Can you tell me a little bit about your inspiration process? Like, what inspires you to try these other things? I mean, do you go around trying all different things from other places? Do you try different cuisines? Like, what inspires you? Like when you came up with this tangerine sriracha, like what triggered you to think, oh, those things might be good together?
So that one was very straightforward for me. It started with a whiteboard. Honestly, it was, writing down what the hot items at the time were. Not even literally hot, but like, what are the things people are talking about the most? What are they interested in the most? And what can we do that's relevant and works within what we already do? So on that board, I had sriracha, I had harissa, and I probably had one other type of sauce. And then I had a list of all the flavors we had at the time, and I started going back and forth. So it was, strawberry sriracha, no. Strawberry harissa, no. Raspberry harissa, no. So cross harissa off.
Did you actually try? Did you actually combine those two and try them out?
Not necessarily. I mean, I bought harissa to try harissa just to see what it was. Again, not knowing, really just grasping at straws. And I liked harissa, but it wasn't something I thought was going to work for us. And sriracha is sriracha. I mean, everyone loves sriracha if you can, if you like heat. So
isn't that the number one sauce or number one condiment now?
Replace ketchup.
Replace ketchup. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it was that thing. And so just, again, starting with that and then going through our flavors, and I was like, raspberry sriracha, no. Strawberry, no. Fig, no. Tangerine. I was like, okay. So as soon as I said tangerine and sriracha, I knew that was a thing, and the flavor profiles made sense to my mind. And I took regular, just store-bought the Rooster Hoi Fung sriracha, and I mixed that with Jan's, our tangerine marmalade, which was already in production and been made and all that stuff. And I just whisked it together in a bowl, and I was like, oh, this is delicious. This is great. And we were, I would say at that point, as good as it was, we probably would have put that in a bottle somehow. We could have done that. But what ended up happening was Jan subscribes to Cook's Magazine. And Cook's Magazine has all types of information and recipes. And they had a recipe for sriracha in there. So I was like, okay, let me we know that other thing works, but let's see what I can do. And I took that recipe and made my own version of sriracha with it. I did some tweaks to the flavor and tried to make it more complementary to the tangerine that I was going to add to it. And that was it was lights out. Like, we knew when it was done. When when I made it in the kitchen, we knew, oh, this is amazing. And then we sent it to the co-packer and did our back and forth there. And ultimately, it just took about a year to develop. And a lot of that time was due to the fact that we had to buy an entire field of peppers. Like, we had to buy like someone's crop of peppers, to get them to make the sauce, because I guess when you get green peppers aren't ripe, and they still harvest them and sell them. But if you wanted them to let them grow and ripen to red, you had to pay for all of them. So that's what they did. So that's what we did. And
they're not spicy if they're not red, right?
Right. Yeah. No. Basically.
Well, so when you said, go back a little bit to where you were saying, it was hot. When you said, how do you find out what's hot? I mean, were you just like scrolling through social media, Google Trends? I mean, how did you know? I mean, obviously we all know, sriracha's hot or whatever at the moment, but like, is there any sources that you went to that sort of prove to you that these things were hot?
I don't know if I would say there were sources. I think anecdotally, I had an awareness. We go to food shows, so you're seeing things, and through being in food, just subscribing to email newsletters about the food industry and what people are doing. There's all types of newsletters that will just roll through that type of stuff. And then you start looking at kind of the interesting flavor profiles. I think for us specifically, it may have been more a question of what don't we have, or what's something we don't currently offer.
Oh, and so like the empty spaces where you could fit a product that wasn't there.
Right. Exactly.
That's really cool. I like that. Like the fact is, so you just sort of saw it bubbling up, in general. Like, here's something that sounds interesting in the world that I'm in, plus in the world beyond your world. Right. And you thought, well, maybe we can mash it up with something that we already have and come up with something new. And is that like the genesis of most of your products, or is that just that one specifically?
That was that one specifically. I think a lot of times, again, it is. I think one of the compliments we get a lot is that this is something that reminds me of home, or this reminds me of something that someone else used to make, or my grandmother made, or my mom made. And so I think there's always a homey element to the things that draw us in, certainly that draw Jan in. The flavors that she enjoyed growing up, or things she enjoyed cooking, and can we take a bit of that flavor and replicate it to a high degree and put it into a jar? And if it makes sense, then we try to do it. But I do think that also, to your point, there's a little bit of that peeking ahead and kind of seeing where are the holes, where are the gaps. And the most important part with that is just making sure the next thing we do makes sense for what we already do. Like, we don't want to do something that just is totally far afield and doesn't make sense for anything else we offer. It still has to kind of fit within that cobbled together nexus of what makes JustJans.
So you still fit into sort of like, it's like a brand extension thing. You're not going to go out and do like JustJans golf balls or something like that, because it's like totally out. Unless those are filled with jam. No.
Right.
Anyway.
No. Like there's some stuff that just, okay, that doesn't really make sense. That's not what we do. Like, we can expand, but it's still got to be a bandwidth to it.
Yeah. So I love this in nostalgia angle. I mean, is that just so that you went back into your personal history and said, hey, I used to have this when I was a kid, or my mom made this when I was a kid? Is that kind of what pulls out of that, or does that come from other sources too?
I think both. I think, if I think about it, I grew up with a stepdad who loved to cook and loved food. And so I loved sports at that time. If I wanted to watch football on Sunday, the only way I could catch it was in between the cooking shows he was watching. Right. So, I would literally have to be sitting in the basement watching cooking shows for hours and hoping for the channel change to happen when I could catch a glimpse of the football and see the score. And we see, so I think that was certainly an influence, that I grew up just seeing food being cooked all the time, eating different cuisines and different types of cultures, foods. So I think for me, that was something to draw. And I think also for Jan as well, actually, she grew up doing a lot of traveling. as a child with her parents. And so she was exposed to a lot of different cultures from a young age, and raising her own kids, I think wanted them to have a diversity of experiences and foods, all those things. It's just a sense of trying new foods, having different flavors, and then kind of bringing it back together in your own way.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think some of the most innovative people I know are the ones who've had all sorts of experiences, like tons and tons of different experiences, like the people who are like army brats or something like that, and they keep moving around the world and they do all sorts of different things and meet all sorts of different people, and they just bring all this stuff together to create really cool, innovative stuff. And that sounds like what's happening here as well.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a big facet of how we create and frankly why we create the things we do.
So have you ever done anything that was tasted amazing in the kitchen, so you got it out there into the marketplace, and then it failed miserably? Or just say no. You could say no.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say no. I think that, and I think in a lot of instances, what has happened is that it tastes delicious and it's amazing, but it's so kind of different. People don't know how to address it. They're not sure what to do, how to use, and they love it, but they're just like, it's like it's a bit unexpected for them. So I think we've had a few. I can think of at least two off the top of my head. We had a balsamic onion spread that's like,
ooh, that sounds good. I buy that.
Killer. But then you're dealing with the hurdle of getting people to understand it or use it, and some people, and imagine you're doing this in a grocery store setting or at some sort of food fair where people maybe want to taste something they know about or they're familiar with, and maybe they're hesitant to try something new, or some of the things we created, I think, had to be explained a little bit more than we anticipated. So stuff like that. I don't think we ever did something that abjectly failed. I think a part of that, though, is that we, as a small company, we can't afford to take such a big swing and miss.
Right.
The misses have to be small misses.
Too many risks. Yeah.
Well, not that we can't afford to take many risks. We just can't. It have to be a qualified risk, I would say.
Right. Or it's a small risk. You'd make a small batch and you test it with some people and you see what happens, as opposed to just going all in on something.
Yes, totally.
So speaking of market research, what kind of market research do you do then? How do you test your products?
Wow, that's a great question. How do I think
just go around to my family and friends and here you go. What do you guys think?
No, one of the benefits of all the white label work that we had done is the credibility with people who are purchasers, people who are making that buying decision at the store level. So on that basis, we know what it should taste like. We know all the little boxes it needs to tick for us to feel like it should go there, and we have enough of a knowledge to know that's not going to work. And then I think the feedback we get from the buyers or the end users, the purchasers, that tells us too. That lets us know that this is working or this isn't, or you're late on that trend, or maybe you don't want to do this now, that type of thing. So we get feedback in that way. I think that's more of our research is more from the buyer side, like the corporate buyer is the person who's going to say, hey,
right,
do you have any of this? Or we've been getting asked a lot for this. Maybe we should look into this.
So you do get feedback from them, but you do some individualized. You don't really do a lot of individualized market research on products then.
Some, I mean, again, like I think COVID's made this tough. I used to spend a lot of time in the stores, doing the in-store product demos and meeting people and talking about it and seeing what's on shelves. And so now that portion of the experience is gone. Like, I may go to a grocery store, but it's real quick. Like I'm grabbing, I know what I'm getting, and there's no opportunity to taste or sample. So it is more like that anecdotal feedback, and that just, what do you see? What pulls you? Yeah.
But you've been doing this for a while now. You kind of have a sense for what's going to fly and what's not, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I don't want to say, oh, yeah, but, a sense for what could work and what may not work, and still the room to be surprised by what does and what doesn't. So,
right. Have you ever done anything like a sort of a classical design thinking exercise where you just bring like you have no idea you just bring a bunch of customers into a room and say, hey, let's come up with something? Or is it all sort of percolated between you guys?
It's all percolated between us. I think
Okay.
people who know us, friends, family, taste things, and they'll say, "Hey, you should try this," or "I had this. This is really good." Also, in doing the in-store stuff and doing the fairs and types of shows we do, you're meeting other food creators and just seeing what they're doing and trying their combinations, and that community really shares. So that's another space where we pull some inspiration from, for sure.
Right. So it sounds like it's really important to be sort of plugged into whatever community you're in and just get feedback from them.
Absolutely. You
Insight,
need to be speaking, you need to be around people speaking the same language as you who are, so you can have that conversation because they're already within that same world space, and they just kind of, "Oh, you should try this," or "Have you been on this site?" or have you heard of this store? Have you heard of this supplier? So that group shares a lot of information, for sure.
And you're not worried about somebody stealing your ideas?
I mean, no, like
That's
there's
good.
a lot of there's a lot of fruit spreads and jams, and there's a lot of these things out there. Ours is different from the other ones. Theirs is different from ours. So you could steal, I guess, the idea, but would you make what's in our bottles? Probably not.
Well, no, the reason I'm asking is because, there's other startups out there who are saying they're definitely afraid of communicating what they're doing or planning to do because they're worried that someone's going to steal their ideas. But it sounds like, there's enough room for everybody. It's not a zero-sum game, right? Your stuff is unique. Their stuff is unique. Everybody's stuff is unique. Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing is it's unique because you're doing it. Like, that's the uniqueness. Again, my strawberry is different from your strawberry. That's how it's going to be.
It's your secret sauce. You bring that to the table. So if you look back over the 7 years, you said, can you tell me about something that you would have done differently
within the business?
Yeah. Or even outside the business. I don't know. What would you have done differently? Something went the wrong way and you said, well, if I had to do that over again, what would I have done instead?
That's tough. I definitely think there are decisions. I think, Jan could probably name the decisions that she would make differently. I tend to look at those things that we would do differently as important just because we know not to do them now. And I look at it like we were two people who weren't in the food business who got into the food business by learning on the job. So some of the things that we think we would take back were just inevitabilities. As a more specific example, though, I would say we took on a large white label project, a very large project. And the problem with that specific project was, you're paying for production against purchase orders that are coming 60 to 90 days later. And so cash flow issues, that type of stuff, like not getting so wrapped up in that those large numbers at the end that you're not seeing the large costs that come ahead of it.
Right. So cash flow is like super important for a small business, obviously.
Absolutely.
So very cool. Let's see, what else did I have to ask you about? So where do you see yourself going? Okay, it's time to think like a futurist. So it's 2031. We're 10 years from now. Where are you?
Write the number down. 2031.
You're $1 billion business. You're a unicorn.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's the goal. I think that we obviously we definitely have big goals and ambitions for this. I would say by 2031, though, we've exited this company. We have successfully completed the life cycle and growth of the brand and the products, and it's a self-sustaining, self-perpetuating thing. And we have sold it off to some large group who wants to capture more of the high-end gourmet food market leveraging our brand. And 2031, I'm making movies and Jan's cooking someplace, and that's that. Absolutely.
You're making movies? You want to get into making movies?
Oh yeah, that's the dream. I mean, that's what I initially moved to LA for, and that's still the dream. That's still the goal. So by 2031, I would expect to be doing that full time.
Very cool. What kind of movies would you want to make?
I like thriller, suspense, kind of action. I have to say my tastes run more like serious movies. So like not serious, but actiony movies, but smart. So like Sicario is a movie I love. There's directors I love. David Fincher, that type of stuff. Like just really good movies. Like I love a good movie. I'm not necessarily going to sit down for a rom-com, but
Right.
other stuff, yeah. Like I'd like to. That's a world that I really have wanted to explore my whole life, and yeah, by 2031, I would fully expect to be doing that.
Right. So I want to go back a little bit to the stuff that you said was like really far out, like outside of the, because it sounds like a lot of things you've done for growth, you've gone on brand extensions, right? So you've extended, and you said that you did try some things that were far out. So you said that I think the biggest problem was education, right? If you were trying to push products that are a little bit further out and have them more palatable to people, what would be? Do you have any thoughts of what would be the best way?
I thought about this. I honestly, I think the best way would just to be kind of like try it,
Right.
You know, and in the instance of trying to explain it to them, give them less information,
right?
Because more information, people may make an association, they won't even try it. But if it's just try it, like if you don't like it, that's cool, but see if we could break that barrier and get people to just taste without coming in with their pre-cooked notion of what it is or why they may not like it. I think that would be my impetus, is just say, try it. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm pretty sure you're going to like it. And maybe I'll ask a question or two, like with the sriracha, some people don't like spicy. So I let them know it's spicy or it's this, but just taste it. See if you like it. If you don't like it, fine, but just see how you react to it.
Yeah, that's actually interesting, really interesting, because it's sort of consistent with the whole, if you actually give them too much information, then they'll criticize. But if you give them a little bit of information, they're more open to like a positive outlook on a product.
Yeah, you're discovering in that instance as opposed to prejudging.
Yeah, it's more exploration. So if you were to turn around, let's say there's a startup out there that's thinking, or somebody out there who's thinking about getting into the same kind of business as you, maybe not jams or some other food product, what kind of advice would you give them today if they were wanted to start like in 2021? Something like your business?
There's a few things. I would say start small. Don't start off mortgaging your house necessarily, or putting like insane sums of money into, not at the start anyway. Start small. Join, as we were speaking to before, how much information gets shared within the communities of people who are doing this. Join communities, join professional groups. I think one of the big things Jan did early was join the Specialty Food Association. Just a wealth of knowledge and information there. And it doesn't mean that everyone you encounter, every group you join is going to be welcoming or willing to share a lot of the information, but you'll probably run across people who are in the same phase of this journey as you are, and they may share information with you. They may give you a tip. They have done the legwork that you're trying to do, so they can cut out some of the some of the stuff that you're dealing with. And so I think that would probably be my number one piece of advice, is just, start small, but really reach out to the communities, begin to research and figure out how you take this from, if it's a food anyway, how you take it from what you're making to something that's saleable and can go into a store or can go online. Like work your way through that process.
Right. And then would you say getting like a big buyer like you guys did was like the best? Obviously it's the best route, or is it going to online, like doing it on Etsy or selling it? What would, like nowadays, obviously, I mean, things like on internet sales weren't as hot when you started. Would that be the first place to go nowadays? Or
yeah, I think I do think it's the first place. I think the buying, the path to the store has changed, and I think in some ways it's for the better. Because if you're now starting, and let's say you just put on you made your website and you're going to do direct to consumer, you're going to sell, the people who buy from you are your customers. That's your audience. Those are your people. They're shopping with you specifically, so you're cultivating that relationship. Every place else you sell online, you're selling to someone else's audience, and we sell on all these platforms, but those customers that's an Etsy customer, that's an Amazon customer. That is not necessarily my customer. So I think, you have this ability now to cultivate and develop your audience. You can get your fans, you can get the people who are interested in what you're doing. And once you build that to that critical mass, then you go talk to the store and say, hey, I got this. And then you have a little bit more, maybe a little bit more say in the terms of the deal. Now you're dictating because you're bringing an audience.
Right. So you want to start off by building your own audience, and building your own sales, and then you can use that as a lever to talk into these big deals. Because a lot of people, not everyone can get the big break like you guys did.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just that. I don't know how that happened. Jan knows how that happened, but we're grateful for it. Of course, we're happy that it happened.
Yeah,
it's worked out well.
Yeah. No, I was just reading a book called Click Moment, and it was all about how a lot of companies are successful because they just all these things just happen to fall into place at the right moment. And he said it's kind of like luck. Obviously, you can make yourself more or less lucky based on what you're doing, but it's all about the kind of stuff you were just talked about. Is like connect with more people, get out there, get your product out there, get people to know you.
Right.
And then there's a better chance that something will click.
Yeah, and also I would add to that. I think maybe the first thing I should have said in terms of advice for someone, don't stop at the first no. Like don't be deterred by the no's you may hear on the way. I think that's probably how Jan was able to start this business in ways that I maybe couldn't have. Is the no's didn't stop her. Those initial no's didn't stop her. And while there were yeses, there were certainly no's and moments where people will try to dissuade you or tell you not to, or that you shouldn't, or all types of stuff. But if you're really moved by what you're doing and you really have a passion for it and you're doing something good, go with that. Like keep those no's, they become yeses eventually, and then you have something.
It's like anything else, right? Persistence eventually gets you through.
Yeah.
So many people just quit before their big break.
They stop too soon.
Yeah. Well, you guys were lucky. This is great.
Yeah, no, we were very lucky. Very, very lucky. I think Jan would tell you that getting that initial yes, was a major impetus and being like, okay, I can do this. Like, before that, you're kind of thinking you can, or you're wondering if it's going to work, and then someone says, "I'm going to buy it." You're like, "Oh, well, wait, this works. Okay, let's do this." So yeah,
nice.
That's an important part.
Fantastic. Oh, this has been great. Thank you so much. This is fantastic. Do you have any parting words for anybody out there who wants to do this?
Parting word. Trust your gut.
Yeah.
If what you're doing lights you up, if that makes you happy, find ways to spend more time doing that, and keep doing that until that's all you're doing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. So,
you.
What's the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way, you can. Me personally, Kris, Kris at JustJans.com. Also, please visit www.JustJans.com. That's JustJans.com. Everything's delicious. The reviews there speak for it. Trust me, take my word.
I can't wait to try it. Sounds real good.
And send me your address. I will send you the sriracha.
Oh, thank you, sir. I'll put all the bio and information in the show notes. So if anybody wants to get in touch, that's the way they'll do it. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great talking.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Likewise.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.